One of the strongest condemnation and dangers of alcohol is revealed in Proverbs chapter 23. It actually gives us 10 dangers or consequences of the abuse of alcohol in the Old Testament. Let's look through them. Proverbs 23 verse 29. Who has woe? Who has sorrow? Who has contentions? Who has complaints? Who has wounds without cause? Who has redness of eyes? We see already 5 dangers, 5 consequences of, in the Old Testament, abuse of alcohol. Number 1 is the sorrow. People who abuse alcohol, people who consume alcohol, experience sorrow. It's seen that people are lost after they're turning to alcohol. We see again and again this is happening to people. Is they become angry, they become rebellious, they become violent, and often it leads to divorce, abuse, and neglect of those who are near and to those who are dear. People experience sorrow. The second thing we see in this verse that alcohol does is it creates contention. It creeps into one's happy, thriving family and relationship. Something happens. Fighting, arguing, violence begins to come into the family. I've stayed in hotels with me and my wife on vacations and both on ministry trips. And you know, when somebody's fighting the next door, you can be 100% sure they're drunk. That means that they're not fighting just because something bad happened. It's because they're intoxicated. It's very loud. Things are thrown. Police is involved. And it's always like that. Because alcohol leads to contention. It leads to sorrow and it leads to contention. And then Solomon, tells us that it leads to complaining. We see who has contentions and who has complaints. It's something we're all guilty at all times or at some times. But while you're intoxicated, all of your restraints, all of your inhibitions, they leave. Alcohol leaves a person to make foolish decisions that have permanent effects, that have sometimes last forever. Fourth danger or fourth consequence is you experience wounds without cause. It's associated with the huge death toll that alcohol produces. For example, from car accidents, murders, homicides, domestic accidents, people who do very bad things under the influence of alcohol. And I don't have to tell you that you see that on the road. People who drove intoxicated, people who in the whole state of intoxication, they killed somebody. Most people who lose their virginity, they do it under the influence of alcohol. It helps them to go into other sins. People who even commit crimes a lot of times, they're tipsy. They're I call them sipping saints, because some of them still claim to be Christian, and they're people who are under influence of alcohol. Redness of eyes, number 5. It's associated with mental anguish. It's when one weeps or lacks sleep, their eyes are red. Sadly, people are drinking today to find happiness, and at the end, they are the ones that have the least of that happiness. While we may have fun while drinking and partying, the joy is temporary and often forgotten. If we dive a little bit further into book of Proverbs 23, verse 32, it says, "At last it bites like a serpent." So it speaks of alcohol, and it stings like a viper. That means a viper, a serpent, releases poison. Number 6 is that alcohol is really a poison in your body. Alcohol is associated with something that causes 7 cancers, in addition to high blood pressure, depression, and dementia. Why do people vomit after a lot of drinking? Their stomach has more sense than their brain to get rid of the toxin. The same thing as it happens with food poisoning. Why do you throw up when you get drunk? Because it shows your stomach actually has more brains than your brain. Your stomach gets rid of toxin. The Bible talks about it. The sting of a viper. The Bible talks about the viper, the serpent, the poison. Being drunk, you're actually filling your body with poison. That's the Old Testament. We haven't got to the New Testament yet. Chapter 23, verse 33 of Proverbs. Your eyes will see strange things, and your heart will utter perverse things. So the 7th danger or consequences of being drunk is immorality and hallucinations. Now, hallucinations, you know what that means. You start seeing weird stuff. But immorality comes from releasing perverse words out of your heart. See, what alcohol does is it lowers down your self-control, which often leads directly into the trap of sin. Verse 34 and verse 35 of the same chapter. Yes, you will be like the one who lies down in the midst of the sea, or like the one who lies on the top of the mast, saying, "They have struck me, but I wasn't hurt. They have beaten me, but I didn't feel it. When I shall awake, that I may seek another drink." You become unstable when you abuse alcohol. You become like seasick. You can't talk straight. You can't walk straight. You can't think straight. Number 9, your senses become dulled. It says, "They struck me. I didn't feel it." you literally lose your sensitivities. You lose your convictions. You lose the sensitivities that God has given you to be able to operate as a human being. You dull your senses. And number 10 is alcohol is extremely addictive. Have you noticed how Proverbs 23 ends with, and when I shall awake, that I may seek another drink. You may say that, oh, this is the last one. That's not how it happens. The Chinese proverb says, first the man takes a drink, and then the drink takes the man. The drink takes the man. It takes over you. You become addicted.